sake of the later video, maybe we can start with Jani. Can you introduce yourself and say in a couple of sentences what do you do on everyday basis and what the company does? Please, Jani, we start with you.
Okay, so you guys are hearing, right? Well, so Jani Antikainen here, and as you said, I come from Sparta, and there is actually two labels there. Sparta Consulting is a company which I founded some 5 years back, and then like 4 years back we just understood that there are some things in the consultancy we are doing on the information management scene which are very applicable in the context of the security, and therefore we established this Huginn trademark, and it's a kind of an appliance software for countering the information manipulation, which I was talking earlier about. And what I'm doing on my daily basis, even my mother doesn't know. I have a vague idea, so that's pretty much it.
Okay, good one. Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark here with IBM. I'm a program director in the security division. And I run a team which sits in between sales, marketing, offering management, development, support, and so on. And basically, we synthesize what our security products do into plain language, and we turn that into training. So we do a number of things. We train our sellers and our partners on what the products do. Sometimes we get involved in customer training as well. So that's basically it. We span across all of IBM security products.
Okay. Good one. Motty?
Hi.
Hey.
So, I'm Motty. I think I introduced myself, but what I do in Waterfall, I'm the director and responsible for Europe, for European region in general, all commercial aspects of it. It's a nice world for sales. And what Waterfall does is we basically, again, our focus is OT cybersecurity, not IT cybersecurity. We focus on critical infrastructure. We started from the energy sector, but over the years it's expanded more and more into from nuclear energy to regular energy to water facilities to oil and gas, chemical, pharma, manufacturing, railway systems, airports. Everybody is becoming a critical infrastructure, and with the there is the manufacturing 4.0. We are also talking, we see a lot of expansion into that area where you have hundreds or thousands of PLCs talking directly, uploading stuff into the cloud, or theoretically so. And we are trying to make sure that nothing comes back from the cloud to hunt them.
So they're not downloading, yep. They're just uploading. Okay, good one. Yes, Intars?
Yeah, my name is Intars Garbovskis. I'm leading security practice in Accenture Latvia. And on a daily basis, what we are doing, we are providing cybersecurity testing services to our clients and more consultant type of work, which is really information security risk assessments, data privacy, GDPR compliance assessments.
Okay, good. I'd like to open the conversation with actually the raising of awareness and training issues regarding IT personnel, especially CIOs, etc. And I'd like to start actually with yes, this was it. With one issue, Are, who is not present in the panel, who was from Estonia, working and training NATO cybersecurity soldiers, and he had this sentence that if you are trained how to attack, you will know how to defend yourself. So, would you agree that this is one of the ways to train IT specialists, especially those who work in IT security, is really only for professionals? Should it stay only for professionals? Should we really train everybody? Is it possible? And what are the means of other progressive means of training IT personnel, especially regarding security? Who wants to go first? Motty.
Okay, so first of all, training, yes, definitely. You need to train the professionals, and you need to retrain them and train them again. And there are facilities that enable that. You mentioned it with IBM. There are other facilities around the world that enable these guys to enter into real-time scenarios when they keep getting attacked and see how they respond. So if it happens in real life, they won't be surprised. And it's always surprising when it happens to you. You can theoretically learn about it. As for general education of the people, there I don't think it's possible. I think there you have to focus on procedures, and in general educating the people. Don't open those attachments from people you don't know. But even then, it doesn't. At the end of the day, what we believe is that you need to enforce it with strong perimeter around your important stuff. Because even if you do educate your people, look, for example, some attacks came through HR people that opened CVs that were in Word format or included something, and you can educate them to the best of you, to as long as you want. Do not open attachments from people you don't know. But guess what? This is what HR doing on a daily basis. They open attachments for people they don't know. This is what they do for a living. So even if you train them, it won't help. This is their job. You need to take another measure of security, that making sure that if something happens there, it doesn't hurt real bad. It only hurts the parts that can allow themselves to get hurt.
So it's also some risk training or risk awareness training, risk management training, because IT professionals, well, they handle stuff, they handle things, they push buttons.
They do. And also training for top management, for board of directors. That's also crucial, because at the end of the day, these are the guys that with their hands in the wallet, and they need to, somebody needs to take responsibility. Somebody needs to tell the CISO, this is your problem if something happens there. And it doesn't happen everywhere.
Okay, good. Intars, I remember in one of your slides, CISOs were quite limited in their abilities to make any decisions, especially regarding budget and spending, etc. That includes the budgets for training, actually.
Yeah, maybe on the first question then, I think that's the only way, really trying to understand. If you know what are those attack vectors and what they are doing, that's the only way how to, let's say, become more sustainable. But as mentioned, I completely agree. There are different levels. Top management, that's the first, I think, where to start educating them. But also, it means we need to understand what's happening, what are the threats, what's new. We will never know what will happen tomorrow. There always will be some new ways, new attack types, etc. But that's, I think, the key, what to do. Professionals, my opinion is those practical exercises, that's the best way how to train them. But for kind of end users, like HR people, there are different programs or approaches how to educate them. They don't need to know what exactly technically will happen when the attack will hit us. But anyway, they need to understand what they should do, those basics, awareness things, starting from passwords and all those things that we are repeating on a daily basis. It doesn't mean they need to be trained as those professionals. But that, trying to understand what is happening, what are the attacks, that's the key for all the levels across the company.
So it's more like an environment training for everybody. Just
yes,
awareness.
we can call it like that. And about the budgets and CISOs, let's say, our authority, it depends again from company to company where that budget is. But even if its budget is under CISO's responsibility, the key message was they must become more business-oriented and somehow get closer to the board and the CEO who make those decisions to pitch and prove that we need this because of that.
Okay, understood. More?
Yeah, to comment, I don't know if that was still the first question or a different question.
Yeah, I know. We just complimented it with
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but I had a comment on the first question.
So the first one regarding professionals. And
so of course things like the cyber ranges are great for training the professionals. But one of the comments I was going to make about the training the professionals is it's also very interesting to those guys. They want to learn those techniques. Like, I think back, I don't know if you've ever been to a Black Hat conference, but at the Black Hat conference, a lot of times they'll have lock-picking seminars, and they are, to the rafters. People are out the door because they want to learn how to do that, because it's fun. And so I think to that end, if you can give the professionals a safe environment where they can not only learn those things, but also learn how to react to them, it makes a lot of sense. Now, on the user side, I agree with what everybody said here, but I think one of the things also you need to think about are that there are certain roles within the organization that are much more sensitive and or the nature of their role needs more protection. So, for example, the HR person who's opening attachments all the time, or executives. And in those cases, I think it's not only education of those users not to do dumb things, but also potentially to employ additional protective technology like sandboxing, for example. If they're going to be opening documents, open them up in an environment where if it does detonate, it's not going to hurt anything, right? So I think it's a combination of those kinds of things. But we really have to think about different categories of users and those that are at the highest risk and or handling the most sensitive information.
Good. Jani?
Okay, I don't actually remember quite well what was the first question. I think it was, do we have to understand the attack kind of possibilities to be able to defend ourselves well?
There is a subtle difference between when we train business managers, we don't just train them how business works, we train them to be sharks in a tank, actually.
Yeah.
Would you believe you need to train how to kill in order to know how to protect yourself?
Well, I hate quoting, and I'm not a great fan of those, but it comes to Sun Tzu stuff, knowing your enemy and knowing yourself too. So to an extent, naturally, we do have to understand what are the possibilities, but where I see that it has to originate from is, there was somebody already mentioning this risk management, etc. It's not a very well-established practice, at least in Finland, even in major enterprises, there is no such thing as actual enterprise risk management, meaning that what are the actual kind of security risks to continuity of our business, whether, for example, our customer data gets scrambled or manipulated, as I was giving some kind of example. So they had to be, the risks need to be there to really address the most critical threats that we have to be able to, defend ourselves against. So, and yes, naturally it makes sense that people are somewhat aware, so this kind of general training for the employees that don't do this stupid stuff and don't do this stupid stuff, that needs to be there. But I strongly say here, you guys were mentioning about this kind of role-based thing, that what the HR guys should be thinking about, what would be the possible scenarios, risk scenarios in accounting. So that, because people they can remember 2-3 things, and if we get this kind of general training at this is cyber and yada, 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 they will be nodding, and then they will be continuing what they were doing earlier. So, and that is one of those, I think, kind of problem or even a kind of opportunity for the security guys that they have to understand the business that much that they can have some kind of idea what should we be training these guys to, what are the risks that they should be able to kind of show some kind of red flag that if this is happening, hey, call us, we will kind of investigate it. And one dimension, there is always, I don't know if anybody has been talking about public-private partnership here. It's very,
not yet,
very
not in this room.
Famous subject in these kind of conferences. So I'm not going into kind of that details, but just thinking that what could be the possibilities for example, governmental institutions, like, for example, in Finland, we have NESA, the National Emergency Supply Agency, to be kind of providing this kind of ready-made packages which can be kind of customized. So not everybody should be thinking from the scratch that what are the things that we could be using for these training purposes, but there would be some ready-made models which can be applied to an extent.
Yeah. 2 things I heard from you and Mark that directly actually relates to the motivation of these people. Now, regarding training now those who want to hack something, yes, there was an example. You go on YouTube, you search for some how to crack this or how to break this, etc. And there you will have it, a complete instruction with the videos, with the links to download software, etc. You can buy your starting kit for $30 and start, doing something. People are motivated in a sense that this will generate them money. And in general trainings, they are just, as you said, nodding and so. And you mentioned safe and environments that very important is not where the business is. So this motivation, you said they are quite motivated because it's fun, it's maybe interesting, etc. But in most cases, the management of the company forces that, or the legislation forces that, and somebody has to go and learn something, and then it stays there. So how do we motivate these companies to be more aware, to train their employees? I know it's a broad one, but 2 good examples I heard. So maybe there are more.
Free drinks after the training definitely works. Free
Okay.
drinks. But some guys have been talking about these gamifications or yeah. So I'm not spoiling it for you. You can actually go for. But that's one way, kind of. If it doesn't feel that much that I have to go to this place and talk, listen to 8 hours of this cyber stuff or something, but there is some kind of a hook for me. Well, why it would be interesting if it's kind of that we have a leaderboard of people who have been playing this cybersecurity exercise game on our intranet and are leading and are getting some free movie tickets or whatever. It could be kind of motivating. Also, it could be like naturally all the results for other people can't be shown, but we could be identifying kind of risk spots. So if we see that Laura from accounting, or let's say Jake, because otherwise I will get this Me Too campaign here. So Jake has not been excelling very well in these exercises, and he's in a very critical position with handling the money and having access to our accounts and etc. That could be kind of identifying that, hey, let's go to Jake and give him hands-on training on this and this matter to raise his awareness and skills to defend the company, actually.
Okay. Intars, Motty, you are working, basically your companies are working with the customers, software solutions, hardware solutions. So where is the motivation usually coming from in regards of we need something like this or we need training? Who is initiating that? Is it not like, okay, we solved this hardware, it's working now, and nobody, has to care about that anymore because it's solved? And sometimes security by design really solves some issues, but nevertheless, they need to have training, extensive one.
So the motivation in our area comes from 2 places. First of them is regulation of many places. If you look at the nuclear environment, it's highly regulated, especially in the US, but also in other parts of the world. The other motivation is risk awareness. You don't need, for smart organizations, you don't need necessarily a regulation. If you take the Finland example, for example, Fortum, for the nuclear power plants, have deployed Waterfall for many years now. And they didn't have to do it because there was no regulation back then. But somebody there was smart enough to understand that there is a risk that he's not willing to take. It doesn't happen often enough, but that's the other motivation. And for training, this is, for our specific example, you need to train because we take a very strong physical measure that basically we say, thou shall not pass. Nothing goes through. And there is, unlike firewalls that you need to keep teams updating them all the time with policies, there's nothing to update with us. As long as the laws of physics don't change, we're good. So ongoing training is basically for awareness and procedures, less for how to handle the day-to-day activities.
Okay, right. Intars?
Yeah, I can just add that definitely it helps if it's some kind of gamification or competition, really tracking, monitoring, let's say, specific metrics, and then showing how each team is really performing. But one more way, and what we are using, really making sense out of those trainings and giving people real facts. Not just that you need to protect your password, it must be like this, but really adding facts in best scenarios from the organization, let's say incidents that happened, why they happened, just to make people feel that it's not just someone telling something because it should be done, but that there are really attacks happening and bad things are happening, and we are the ones who can help actually avoiding that and disrupting business.
Okay, so we educate our customers, and sometimes, and I think most usually, those decisions, they come from the management of the company. They actually decide where to spend their budgets, and they actually decide what kind of protection do they need. And this again relates to the motivation. And I think, Jani, you told in your presentation, there was this open question, do companies understand and value critical information? So let me rephrase it, like do they know what is the critical information? Well, if we ask them questions, what can happen? Well, the business will stop, we will lose money. And that's probably the only answer that comes in their mind if they haven't thought about that before. I mean, we take so many things for granted. The business was running like that, etc. We don't value each those little processes. How can we understand and identify those critical parts that need to be protected that actually raises our motivation to do something about it? Who wants to go?
I can just maybe share our experience. So definitely if it would be by default, and it is, everyone's responsibility, but if there won't be someone who is really pushing and motivating and tracking what is happening, if they're really doing the right things, then nothing will happen. What we have done, we have so-called client data protection program in Accenture, where for each client, for each project, by default, there are huge teams who are applying ISO 27001 approach for each and every work that we are doing. So, and there are no options to skip. And that's how people are asked to answer the questions. What is the key assets information we are processing, accessing for this client? And this is the way how we will protect it. So there must be processes and someone who is responsible for applying that security to work we do and assets we have.
Are you giving them some sort of a checklist as a consultant in
Yep,
a sense?
There is exactly quite straightforward framework, questions, controls that must be applied, this is not the rocket science, but just someone need to really remind and control that people on top of their daily work and business also take care about the key security aspects.
Okay.
So just a couple of comments that are kind of related. You know, I think there's maybe two perspectives here. One is when you're developing new systems, new applications, you know, the sort of the state of the art now has gotten pretty mature in terms of, you know, testing source code and policies and procedures for how you're storing, encrypting data, both, you know, at rest as well as in transit. And that's fine, you know, and that's helped a lot. But there's, you know, so many so-called legacy applications out there. I heard one definition of a legacy is anything in production, right? But basically, there are a lot of organizations out there that truly have no idea, to your question earlier, I think, where this data is. And so, you know, there are a number of ways of actually helping these organizations identify where that data resides and then begin tracking that. You know, and that becomes really challenging, especially in larger organizations, because they just literally have no idea where this stuff is and where it's going. And so that's one area where I know we do a lot of assistance, you know, helping customers just figure that out. So again, it's two things. One is helping them figure out where their legacy data is and what's happening to it, and the other one is then going forward as they develop and roll out new applications to make sure that they know where that stuff is going forward. If that makes sense.
I can just add maybe to what you said, especially now when GDPR era has started. So data discovery and data mapping is the key probably, and it's a little bit motivates finally businesses to try to understand where the hell data and information is residing and what type of information we have.
Yeah, this is information protection. There is also this process protection. Sometimes checklists helps, like will you be able to still do your business if, let's say, logistics software breaks down if your cars don't go, if you are unable to, process some order numbers or anything like that. So it can be as simple as that sometimes in order to assess the value of that single order ID that is actually the most valuable thing around all the business. How do you dig to this? And how do you protect the processes, not the information? The information, you had this saying that many companies don't even know where their information are. So many companies actually do, and they sit on their servers, literally, sometimes, but the processes.
Yeah, and that's where we need to start. Otherwise, there is no sense to move to business continuity or disaster recovery.
Yep.
What you are talking, if we don't know what to protect, that's where we need to start. And that's the area where companies are, in many cases, failing because it's additional investment, keeping premises, infrastructure idle. Of course, that requires a lot of money as well. But this is, also related to information security, unfortunately, because during that business continuity, we also need to take care about information security. But that's, I think, also quite broad topic.
Yeah, and one way to kind of to be protecting those processes, as you said, I'm really a fan of this kind of mentality shift from the systems to processes. And if we look at the very kind of textbook stack of information management, we have the business processes, we have the information, then we have the system landscape and the applications. And now the focus is pretty much on the applications or the system landscape. But process and information, you can't actually separate them. You can't kind of manage the process without managing the information, and the other way around. So identifying what the information is, it comes from the processes, and there are great tools nowadays driving towards companies really finding some interest of identifying that what our digital assets are. There's many exercises on digitalization where you can't actually publish the information or the data that you have directly to the consumers without any kind of filter, where they used to be like customer agent or whatever. You are, with your services, you are actually publishing that information directly, so you have to take care of the quality of the data. And these are powerful things, for example, data quality management under the information management, master data management, the regulations we were talking about, GDPR, it actually implies that you have to be able to identify the processing activities. That's what the regulation asks after. But you have to be at the same time, to an extent, able to say that this is where our personally identifiable information actually relies. So let's take the good points and the good things of these regulations. Basel regulation asking after integrity of information across the system landscape. Solvency II is highly promoting data quality on financial data, that if you can't prove us, the authorities, that you have the same information across your landscape, which you are using for your solvency reporting, don't go any further. We don't believe anything after that one. So first, show us that your quality is in the place, and then let's talk about the rest of the things. So there are these kind of, they sound like bad things, but I say GDPR, even that some people use it as a curse word, it's really pushing the thing in a good way forward. Yeah, there is some pain, but there are some benefits, for example, to IS guys, security guys, and actually the security guys, they should be able to identify the information assets, right? The same applies to information management guys. They should be able to identify some part of the information assets. And enterprise risk management should be able to do what is the information that we can't go on without. So 3-4 actors are now, unfortunately, in many places doing this work on their own. There is no whatsoever shared kind of initiative or targets that, okay, we are 4 guys, everyone is doing the same thing on his own locker or silo or whatever. Why not kind of think about joining the forces, because the goal is the same for all of us. So, long speech, I don't know.
No, it's a perfect one. I love it. I love it.
Just
Okay.
a few words. In Waterfall, we protect industrial processes, which is, and the bottom line, we believe in a very strong perimeter to protect them. We believe in a strong perimeter. It needs to be physical, and it needs to be a cyber perimeter. But you need to isolate the critical processes from the outside threats. That's it.
Okay, so you still need to identify them, and if you have
industrial
only,
environment,
if
it's
you have
relatively
only
easy to identify them.
Oh, okay. Right. My last question for this panel is actually, it's again in two parts. Sorry about that, but it's artificial intelligence in IT security, in process defenses, and so. So the first part of this question is it really working? Do we see positive cases? Is it just like a buzzword for this year and for this conference, or is it what do we understand by AI? Is it simply machine learning? Is it simply some software that is just identifying some algorithms, etc.? We need to understand what it is. That is not just one of the IT buzzwords. And the second part of it is actually more about human nature. Now, you can give a human a really sophisticated tool, and he will not know what to do with it. I mean, what do people do with artificial intelligence in their security? How can they use it? Mark mentioned this X-Force portal, database, etc. It's a tool. So name anybody in the audience. Can he raise up and say, I will use it for this and this and this purposes. I know what to do with it. I think that's one of the problems with AI and with systems like that. It shouldn't stay like a buzzword. It should really work.
Right. So it's a big question, or big topic, right?
Yeah.
But you're right. Artificial intelligence is one of those buzzwords, as we call them, which is, it can be anything, right? Now, the way we see it at IBM is, and the foundation of our AI is Watson, as I mentioned during my talk. And but you make a very good point, and that is that you can provide the most complex, sophisticated tools to your people, but if they don't know how to use them, then they're a waste of money, right? So the way that we're looking at it is a couple of ways. One of which is, we use Watson, which is really a cognitive reasoning platform, if you will. So it's got this tremendous knowledge base, right? Yeah. Billions and billions of pieces of information. And we use that as basically a massive correlation engine so that if you have a researcher that's dealing with a specific problem, say that you've just seen a suspicious piece of malware across your network. If you have an inexperienced analyst, it may take them hours or days to try to figure out anything about that, right? Because there's just a tremendous amount of things you need to research. If you have a platform like Watson or other AI platforms that have this huge knowledge base, they can not only retrieve the information on that specific threat in close to real time. So as these things are emerging, it's constantly updating, which is faster than any human could ever do. But it's also correlating things across the organization. So for example, if you see a piece of malware on one machine or on a critical system or whatever, how big is this problem? Is this one machine? Is this 100? Is this 1,000? Right? And that's something a human can't do. You need something like AI to be able to process that fast. Right? So that's kind of where I see it going. Now, with underneath artificial intelligence, then you've got the other buzzwords, machine learning and so on, behavioral analytics, and they're all part of it. But I think at the end of the day, it's really important to be able to deploy those technologies in a way that your analysts and your users can easily, through like a click, leverage it, so they don't have to really worry about what's happening behind the scenes.
So it's better than it's an assistant to the humans still. So because you understand, if people don't understand how to use it, what are the use cases, etc., there's no trust, especially to AI. We've seen movies, horror movies. Okay, I'm not blaming that, but we last year and previously last year, I did ask a question in the conference to the panel: is AI going to solve this eventually and you know, tackle those issues? And nobody said. Yes, it's not a panacea, it will not help. Now everybody seems to have an AI product within their security products portfolio. Now how?
Well, you know, and that's exactly why we don't call it, we prefer to use it augmented intelligence, because what we're really doing is just making the humans more efficient. Now, we're not looking to solve the problem without a human, because humans are still capable of way more reasoning and much faster cognition than any platform will ever do. But if we can accelerate that process and bring that data to them quicker, right, then it makes them more efficient. But I don't think it'll ever replace them.
Yeah, okay. I want to handle the microphone to the Intars because one of your slides said only 2 out of 5 companies are using AI tools for the IT security, etc. 2/5 already using them. Is it really so?
It was actually both.
Like that?
AI, machine learning, and automation. So these are those kind of in one bucket. That's the kind of combination of that all. But I agree, in general, AI is still a little bit of buzzword. We are not there. My opinion is we are really doing quite a lot and well in automation, machine learning, but we are not yet there at AI, because as you said, we don't see real products. My view is there might be some, let's say, push from external hackers. When they will start using those AI type of things, then we will be forced to do the same on our side. So unfortunately, I think that's the real situation. We need to wait.
Now, in this case, you understand that it's horrendously wrong to wait for the bad guys to finally use the technology so we can and start using it.
Exactly. But that's exactly the same when we talk training people based on what attackers do. That's the only way how to protect. We don't know what will happen, and we cannot kind of predict. Of course, we can predict. But unfortunately, we need to learn from someone's mistakes.
Okay, good. Motty?
In our line of business, we don't have to deal a lot with AI. I view AI mainly from the threat side, from when the bad guys start using it and when the malware became, you know, more sophisticated and adaptive and learning and trying and changing all the time, so the signatures will never stay the same, which always bring us, from our point of view, to the ultimate conclusion that we can't you know, win in this race because it's ever changing. You cannot, you know, there will always be tomorrow the next zero-day attacks that you are not aware of today. AI poses a whole new set of threats. So we went back to basics, to physics, and we said,
I understand, but your software and your hardware is, for example, protecting farms. And artificial intelligence is a substantial part of...
The protection is done by the hardware. The protection itself is done by the hardware. The software is the way to interact with the world. But the protection itself is done by the hardware.
Okay.
You know, if I could just inject, sorry if I'm stealing your thunder, but you know, my personal opinion too is that we need to shift how we're detecting things like this. You know, it used to be most of your platforms before AI were based on rules, you know, rules and search static things. And to your point, like with polymorphic malware, which is changing every second, you can't just do a rule that says, look for this, right? Because it's changing all the time. So what we need to do and what is happening is that we're shifting from sort of static rules, static searches into more, if you want to call it behavioral or pattern-based or whatever you want to call it. But basically, we're looking for abnormal behavior, and it's not necessarily users, right? It could be a device, it could be a network, whatever it is. But we're looking for abnormalities that would be indicative of the problem, would be a symptom of the problem, rather than specifically looking for the problem, if that makes sense.
Okay, and Jani, I would like to close this question with your final remarks. AI usage trust inevitability of it?
That was a question.
Yeah.
Did it have a question?
Do you believe it will be like this on everyday basis solutions in a sense that it will protect us?
Well, it can protect us, and it can be the cookie of the bad guys at the same time, naturally. But for at least us in Huginn, we are using pattern recognition and kind of changing patterns, as you were saying. But it's more like really, I like this term of augmented intelligence. That is what it's for us, because if we go to company X and we try to find that critical information and how it behaves through a process, it's a kind of it's work. It's lots of work, really. Interviewing this and this and this person. And what we are using it is actually just tapping into those data sources and data streams from, for example, accounting, and seeing how things kind of normally are done there, how the process goes and how the information changes, which we can now leverage now, identifying some anomalies in the behavior of the information, not the people, not the system, but actually how the information changes and does it make any actual sense. So we are not that hype kind of groovy and wow, top-notch guys that we would be advertising that we got this AI, because honestly I don't know what AI is. I only watched the movie. Okay. So it's more for us, it's algorithms and it's statistics and correlation.
Okay.
But the same applies to the dark guys. They don't usually have this opportunity to come to the business and ask how you are processing, for example, your financial assets. How are you doing, so that they could be like manipulating those processes and taking advantage of it. But they could be actually using this kind of technology planted there somewhere, doing the same thing on, oh my God, now I'm saying it, that we are doing to identify how things are done the good way. And then understanding that, they know what they have to do differently to get whatever they want to accomplish.
So it looks normal.
Yeah, kind of.
So it doesn't look like an anomaly, because it's basically listening with the software, with the device, etc. So my take from this is it's 2018 and we're not there yet. So there's a road to go and there's stuff to talk in next conferences. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for your panel. Thank you for your time. Good. Okay, and yeah, we all deserved some lunchtime. Thank you very much.